Daf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, 4 lines from the top. We learned previously that the same hazos, the sequence of hazos that we have in the Kodesh Kadoshim, the Achas Lamala of Sheva Lamata for the par and also for the sor, we have that also in the oil moed. The Gemara, we have a klal, a principle by Kodshim, that something which in itself is learned through a hekesh, you cannot extend it further and apply it to a hekesh in another case. Something which in itself is learned through a hekesh, is derived through a hekesh, cannot teach something else and apply it to a further case through a hekesh. Now over here, even the hazos, the achas lamala and sheva lamata, it says by the par it says sheva lamata. By the sor it says achas lamala. We learn out, even in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, we learn out the par from the sor and the sor from the par. So the one above and 7 below, they themselves, for the par and the sor, even in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, is learned through a hekesh. How can we say, therefore, and extend it further, and extend that same halacha to the oil moed through a hekesh? It itself was learned through a hekesh. The Gemara answers, yes, even though we have this principle that a davar lamed behekesh is not chayzer malam behekesh, but that's only where that's all that's being learned. But over here, the Gemara answers that this is different, because this is heimen v'davar acher. This, what we say that you can't apply the davar lamed behekesh, you can't be chayzer lamed behekesh, that's only something which was learned completely through a hekesh. But over here, the 7, the 1 above and 7 below for the par and the sawyer wasn't learned completely from a hekesh. The Torah says explicitly 7 by the par below. It says explicitly 1 above by the sawyer. So it's not, the halachas themselves were not learned entirely through a hekesh. They were learned partially from what was written beferish in the pasuk. There we could apply it and extend it further from through a hekesh. So we don't consider this to be a davar lamed behekesh because it's not learned completely through a hekesh. Well, that's fine according to the mandamar that says that we do not consider this to be something learned through a hekesh because part of it was said explicitly. But according to the mandamar, it says that even if only part of it is learned through hekesh, it's still considered lamed behekesh. What are you going to say? The Gemara answers, nevertheless, we're learning places from each other. We're learning the place, one place from the other place. We're learning the oil moed from the Kodesh Kadoshim. Therefore, we're not learning the same halacha through the hekesh. The first hekesh was teaching you the hazos, was teaching you that the hazos of achas lamala sheva lamata, both the par and the sor. The second hekesh is not teaching you the same halachas. It's not teaching you the halachas of above and below. It's applying the places. It's saying whatever was done in the Kodesh Kadoshim should be done in the oil moed. So it's a different focus of the halacha, and therefore it's not considered davar lamed behekesh, which is not chayzer malamed behekesh. Or if you'll say no, that we do consider this lamed behekesh because saif is called saif. What are we learning out? We're learning out places, but we're learning out the hazos, the type and number of hazos that were done in the Kodesh Kadoshim to the oil moed. But nevertheless, chutz mipnim b'charazim negomer. But nevertheless, chutz mipnim b'charazim negomer, that the chutz from the pnim, you learn it out at one time, meaning that some of the halachas that we're learning out are what is written beferish in the Torah. The 7 below in the par is written beferish. So that we could apply to the oil moed. Now, once you're learning that, you learn together with it what is not said beferish, which is the one above. And similarly by the sawyer. The sawyer, the one above, is said beferish. So that you can apply through the hekesh. Once you apply to the hekesh, through the hekesh to the oil moed, simultaneously it comes with it what is learned with the hekesh, because you're not learning something through a hekesh entirely through a hekesh. You're learning something which was said beferish in the Torah. Now it happens to be that there is a hekesh that teaches additional halachas, but you're learning out the chutz mipnim, and therefore you're entitled to learn out what is said beferish, and memela you learn out the entire halacha at the same time. Tana was taught in Brisa Kishu Maze when he does the sprinkling opposite the pareches. Eino Maze ala pareches. He does not have to touch the pareches. Ela kenegen ha pareches. He does it opposite the pareches without it actually touching the pareches. Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi, he argues. He says no. He says, Ani Re'isi Baraimi, he was able to see it. In Rome, they took him in, they showed it to him. And he said he actually saw on the paraychos that the blood was on the paraychos. He saw the blood there. Well, how do you know? How does he know that it was actually the par and sor of Yom Kippur? Maybe it was the par, the dam of these korbanos, the par helam davar shel tzibur. If the tzibur acted on the psak of Bezdin, which was mistaken, and they mistakenly did an avera that b'mezid, if done b'mezid, there is chorus, or a avodah zora here, avodah zora that the tzibur did be-shoigeg, then they have to bring these special chatos pnimius where there's also a sprinkling of the dam. Now over there it says, but es penei aparechus, it's sprinkled towards the parechus. Maybe it was that dam that he saw. How does he know specifically that it was of the Yom Kippur? More answers the chaza, Davidic Sidron, that he saw that it was done in the pattern of Yom Kippur. There's achas lamala sheva lamata. That's by Yom Kippur, not by these other korbanos. And Tezishonim explains that, however, the Rabbanan argue, and they say that's not a riot, because perhaps it happened inadvertently. Not that it has to be done that way. They sprinkled it towards the pareches, es penei pareches, but it happened to land that way. But he says, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi argues, because he says that Kain's reason hain, and it wouldn't have happened unless they intended it to happen. It wouldn't have happened inadvertently. It must have been deliberate. And secondly, it wouldn't have been in the pattern of achas lamala v'sheva lemata. It wouldn't have been in that pattern. It might have happened haphazardly, perhaps inadvertently, but not in that particular pattern. It must have been intentionally, it must have been b'kavana. And a similar discourse, those korbanos. It says, Kishu Maza, when he did Hazah of those korbanos, it did not have to touch the pareches, but if it did inadvertently touch, then it's kosher. But there's no halacha that it has to touch. It's just opposite the curtain. And on that, Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi said, Ani re'isi b'reimi v'hayu aleh kama tipe damim shapal herem davar shel tzibur v'sir avodah zor. He said, I saw the parechos in Rome, and it had the blood of it, the stains of the blood on it from those korbanos. Frag the Gemara, well, how does he know it was those korbanos? The dimla the parvus horos Yom Kippurim. Maybe it was the parvus horos Yom Kippur. Says no, because the Chazin of David because he saw that it was not with the pattern of Yom Kippur. So therefore, it must have been of those korbanos that don't have achas lamala and sheva lamata. If the blood of the par on Yom Kippur gets mixed with the blood of the soil, so what does he do if they become mixed together? So how does he do the hazos if they come now mixed together? They're supposed to be done separately. They're supposed to be done the par and then the soil. What happens if the blood gets mixed together? Amarava, he says, Naisan achas lamala v'sheva lamata v'oilo l'kan l'kan. He says you do lamala lamata. You don't have to do it separately. Since you have a mixture of the blood, then you do achas lamala sheva lamata, and it is your yoitza with that. It accomplishes the hazah for both the par and the soyer simultaneously. Amru kamei Rav Yirmiyah. So they said what he said before Rav Yirmiyah. He said bavloit Almar bavloit tipshoy. He said foolish bavloim. Mishum dedair ba'ar the chashucha amreish ma'isa the machashkan, because they live in a dark land. They live in Bovel, which is considered to be a dark land. It's in the low-lying land. It's in the valley. They say the shmaitzes, they say over halachas which are not clear, which are dark. How can that be? How can you do it in that way? You have to do first the complete set of the par. Now, if you're doing it all at the same time, you're doing one on top, which you're saying accomplishes both the hazah of the par and the soyer. That means you're doing the hazah of the soyer lamala before you're doing the par, before you're doing the sheva lamata of the par. Now you have to do the complete set of the par before you do anything of the soyer. It says that he completes the kapara, the tona of the kodesh. Kalei dama par v'achaka kalei dama soyer. First complete the dama par, then the dama soyer. So you have to do the complete hazah for the par before starting to do anything of the soyer. So that's not a solution. What do you do? You first do one on top, 7 below, and all of it in mind. The intention is that dam should be only for the dam of the par. And then you do repeat it. You have to repeat it and do it a second time with the intent that the one above and the 7 below is for the soyer. That's how you do it in that manner. The Taisus Yishanim explains, the Taisus Harosh as well, explain, well, how does that work? But in fact, aren't you doing it when you do achas lamala for the par? Aren't you also, it's mixed with the dam of the soyer, aren't you also doing the dam of the soyer? He says you have kavana that it should be only for the par and not for the soyer. Now, even if you hold that mitzvahs ain't tzrichos kavana, if you hold mitzvahs tzrichos kavana, so you didn't have kavana for the soyer, so it's considered like you didn't do the hazah for the soyer. But even if you hold it mitzvahs ain't tzrichos kavana, but that over here, the time for the dam of the soyer has not yet arrived. It's before the zman. The zman of the soyer is only after you do the par. So here, since the zman hasn't arrived and you don't have kavana for the soyer, even though there is the mitzias of the actual dam of the soyer present, but it's not considered a hazah. And the hazah, therefore, is constitute only the hazah for the par. And then you repeat it with the hazah for the soyer. Is if the blood got mixed up with the latter applications. Now, what meaning? That you did already one for the par. You did one for the par. Now, before doing the 7 below, you did the one above, but achas lamala, but not the sheva lamata, and now the blood got mixed up. So Sava or Papa Kamid Rav maybe thought to say nice and sheva lamata l'shem par l'shem soyer, that you do the sprinklings below the par for the par and the soyer. So you're doing 7 below. Now there's a mixture of the dam of the par and dam of the soyer. That should constitute for both the par and the soyer. Then you do one above for the shem l'shem soyer. Amrle Rav, he said, how could that be? Until now they call us fools. And now certainly they will call us tipshim. Certainly they'll call us fools. How can this be viable? They will call us fools, certainly fools, because they teach us and we don't learn. Here it's out of order, not only out of order with the par and the soyer, even the soyer itself is out of order because you're doing the 7 below of the soyer before you do the one above of the soyer. So even in the soyer itself it's out of order. So this certainly cannot be a solution. You do 7 below only for the shem par. And then you repeat, you do achas lamala for the soyer and sheva lamata for the soyer.